What's up, Planeswalkers? It's your boy K-Dog. Got another fun video for you guys. This one we're back in Abzan colors with a Mutate Reanimation deck. And obviously we had a lot of fun with the last Abzan list. It was kind of more of a Nightmare Tribal. Well, this one we're kind of trying to leverage some of the Reanimation spells, like Necropanther. It's a 3/3 for 3 mana, 1 white and black. Cat Nightmare, 3/3. And the mutate cost is 4, and whenever it mutates, return a creature with mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard straight to the battlefield. That's pretty fantastic. Anytime you can get something back to the battlefield, not just to your hand, that's pretty sweet. So we're running all 4 copies of the Necropanther, and of course, Nethroi is another big reanimation payoff here. It is pretty expensive and is legendary, so just 3 copies I think is where you want to be with this. It's a 5/5 for 5 mana. Death Touch Lifelink mutates for 7, so that's a little bit steep. So most likely you're just going to cast this out as a 5/5 and then mutate on top of it with something else. However, every time it mutates, you can return any number of creature cards with total power 10 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So that's pretty fantastic. You should be able to get 2 to 3 creatures at least with this. And then to kind of help with that plan a little bit, we also have 4 copies of Mire Triton. It's a 2/1 Death Touch for 2 mana. And when it enters, the top 2 cards of our library go into our graveyard and we gain 2 life. So just a fantastic card all around as a Death Touch that'll kind of mitigate our opponent's early aggression and gains us a little bit of life as well. And then it starts to fill up our graveyard just a little bit so we can kind of have our own way to reanimate spells. But obviously our opponent's probably going to have some removal as well, so that's mostly what we're banking on to just kind of leverage that reanimation. Even if we have to block and just kind of trade off with creatures as well, knowing that we can reanimate them later on, gives us a pretty sweet advantage. So a couple other things we got going on here in the early game. We've got 2 copies of Hushbringer. It does shut down the Mire Triton, but that's why we're just running just the 2 of. And the Mire Triton is the fine turn 2 play, and then we can just kind of play Hushbringer whenever we need to after that. And this can also, come out post sideboard, things like that. So that's kind of the only interaction you have to worry about. But once you get past like the first couple turns, you're not really too worried about Mire Triton's ability activating. You're just fine having a 2/1 Death Toucher on board. And of course, neither of these are humans, so you can mutate onto either creature. And of course, this one having flying and lifelink is pretty fantastic mutation target. Of course, we also have Essence Symbiote. Is just a fantastic mutation creature here, 2/2 for 2 mana. And whenever any creature you control mutates, you put a +1/+1 counter on that creature, and you gain 2 life. So it is a beast, so you can mutate onto it or anything else, and you still get the benefit of the counters and the 2 life. So the Symbiote is just a great creature. And of course, all these are 2 drops, and they all come back with Necropanther. Necropanther, of course, is a 3 drop as well, so it can reanimate itself. That's pretty sweet. And for some early removal, since we are kind of a mutation decks, can be a little bit slow trying to get set up. I have a couple copies of Heartless Act, just a fantastic removal spell. It can be kind of awkward if you come across other decks that are mutating and getting counters and things like that. So I think just 2 copies is fine. And you can also remove the counters as well. That might help you out in certain situations. However, Mythos of Nethroi is one of my favorite cards from the new set. It's basically a 3 mana Assassin's Trophy, except your opponent doesn't get the land, but you get to destroy any non-land permanent at instant speed for just 3 mana, which is just a fantastic rate. And of course, you do have to spend the Abzan colors, but that should not be a problem in our deck. And some other mutation payoffs here. We've got 2 copies of Vulpikeet. It's a 2/3 flyer for 4 mana, so it's not great. However, the mutation cost is just 3 mana, and it's only 1 white, and since white is kind of our least dominant color, it's just very splashable for us that we can cast this with some consistency. And also allows us kind of be the aggressor in game 1 to mutate onto our Mire Triton or Essence Symbiote and just start beating down in the air with a Vulpikeet. So that's pretty sweet. And then a Dirge Bat for some additional removal. We would have obviously the Heartless Act and Mythos of Nethroi. So I think 3 is plenty here on the Batra. Just having a 3/3 flash flying for 4 mana is pretty sweet. And every time it mutates, we get to destroy a creature or planeswalker on the opponent's side. Just a fantastic spell there. And of course, Gemrazer, 4/4 reach and trample. Just great to mutate onto the Mire Triton, the Hushbringer, or the Symbiote and just start beating down kind of early on. And it's also fantastic for removing artifacts or enchantments. Obviously, there are plenty of main deck enchantments you want to get rid of, like Fire's Invention and things like that. And the Migratory Greathorn works great just as a way to kind of get your lands out of your deck. 3/4 for 4 mana is decent, and then Mutate is only 3 mana. And whenever it mutates, we get to search for a basic land and put it onto the battlefield tapped. So that's pretty fantastic right there. Especially in a 3-color deck, you want that little bit of fixing, and adding board presence at the same time is great. And then round it off here, we have a couple copies of Vraska, the Golgari Queen. Just a fantastic kind of all-around planeswalker here at 4 mana. For loyalty, we can sack a permanent. If we do, we gain a life, draw a card. So obviously, even if we sacrifice one of our creatures to draw a card, that's fine. We can just get it back with Nethroi or a Necropanther. Or if we're floating out a little bit, we can just sack a land. Things like that. And just a fantastic removal spell at -3. We can destroy any non-land permanent with mana cost 3 or less. And then, of course, if he sticks around long enough to -9, which is certainly possible here, we can basically win the game, because anytime a creature deals any damage whatsoever, combat damage, I should say, that player loses the game, and we win the game. So it's a pretty fantastic planeswalker here. So going over the mana base here, we have just the 2 Triomes. I'm not a big proponent of running more than like a couple of these, because it always enters tapped, and the cycling at 3 is a little bit steep, because you won't always be able to cast whatever you draw into when you cycle with it. So if you want to run all 4, that's perfectly fine, but generally speaking, I'm just not really a fan of running more than a couple copies. Of course, we're all running all 4 copies of the Shocklands, and then for the basics, 3 forests, 3 swamp, 3 plains, and then of course the Castle Locthwain for the card draw, and the extra black source, since we are prominently black sources for our spells. And going to the sideboard here, of course, Soul Guide Lantern is kind of our Grafdigger's Cage, as it's a one-sided graveyard hate, as we get the exile card just when it enters the battlefield from our opponent's graveyard, and then we can just tap and sack it, don't have to pay any mana into it, which is fantastic, and we exile our opponent's graveyard. So obviously cycling decks are pretty popular right now, so if they try to Zenith Flare you for lethal, which has happened to me, I just hold up the Soul Guide Lantern in response, sacrifice it, exile their graveyard, and Zenith Flare does 0 damage. And then the opponent shame scoops because they were not paying attention, so that's pretty fantastic. And then of course, if you have multiples of these, or if the graveyard interaction isn't really relevant, you can always just pay 1, sack it to draw a card. And since there are so many enter the battlefield triggers with Jaruda, elementals, and that kind of shenanigans, we've got a couple more copies of Hushbringer here. And since again we are kind of a mutate deck, so we do want to kind of take our time getting set up. A couple copies of Legion's End to kind of slow down our opponent's early aggression, exiling potentially multiple creatures from their battlefield and their hand at the same time is pretty sweet. A couple copies of Murderous Rider. Sometimes the Heartless Act doesn't quite do the job if your opponent is running counters or things like that. Or if they're just Planeswalker heavy, we can bring in a couple copies of Murderous Rider in those situations. Cubwarden is pretty sweet here. It's a 4 mana 3/5. The Mutate is double white, so that's a little tricky. However, you can just pay it down as a 3 and 1 white, just as a 3/5 lifelinker, and then mutate onto it with something else. But either way, you're getting a fantastic creature. This will come in when you want to go wide, as we get 2 1/1 white cat creature tokens with lifelink. Then, of course, for those artifact and enchantment heavy decks, we got a couple more copies of Gemrazer. And then for some utility here, we got a copy of Sorin and a copy of Vivien. So we're bringing Sorin against like any kind of like a mirror match, and we want to kind of use the lifelink to our advantage to kind of get ahead of our opponent. And then, of course, being able to reanimate our spells is very flavorful what they're trying to do, so we can obviously always turn to that as well to get our creatures back. And of course, Vivien, just a nice little creature factory for some grindier games and things like that. Your opponent has like lots of removal. You just bring in Vivien, and she can just keep pumping out 3/3 creatures every turn, or just giving you additional creatures when you cast a creature with her -2 ability. So that's pretty fantastic. And just being able to look at the top of your card of your library and cast that card as well, it's just fantastic for reestablishing board presence. So that's pretty much the deck. And let's jump into some best of 3 and see how we do today. Alright, up against Great Anami. One land. Nope, can't keep that. This is better. So we'll put a Temple Garden away. Okay, turn 1 Terramander. So you do have the turn 2 Mire Triton into turn 3 Necropanther or Mythos. So you're playing Terramander and Drowned Secrets. So are you an aggressive deck, or are you a mill deck? I don't understand. Well, we have a Gemrazer to take that out. So just kind of a flash tempo deck running Drowned Secrets Oh, for themselves? Okay. I wonder what that's all about. Narset's Reversal. Not a card that sees a whole lot of play. So do we kill the Brineborn Cutthroat now, or do we just try to get more creatures out? Let's attack them and see what they do. I think we just try to race them. We'll kind of hold up the Mythos and kind of see what we need to destroy first. We'll see when it does get too big we can kill it, or if they have something bigger that we're not aware of yet, we can always destroy that. Okay, so they turn our Necropanther into a 1/1. We do have the Batra we can flash in, maybe catch them off guard a little bit. Our Necropanther's not doing us any good, so we'll take that trade all day. It's kind of a weird attack. They're a long way from adapting this Terramander, so I think I'm fine with just mutating. Could have a bounce spell here, but I like that resolved pretty quickly, so I guess not. And what do we want here? Probably a swamp. I think our hand does feel a little heavy on black spells with the Batra and Mythos, so I think we're pretty set up okay for mana at this point. And we can just flash in our Batra to take out this Terramander, potentially. So we're playing at Naga Eternal. This is just a random pile of blue spells. Not sure what the self-mill is for. Haven't seen any payoffs other than the Terramanders, I guess. So now they're getting to a point where they can adapt, I should say. Down to one card in hand. So they can adapt one of these next turn. So we'd flash in Batra and then they just adapt the one that we block and then it kills it, which isn't great. We could play our Nethroi. Just have a life-linking creature down and then try to destroy next turn, or just hold up in Mythos. The Hushbringer and Mythos seems pretty reasonable, so we'll try that. So when attacking with the Terramanders, we can block one of them, and we'll just see which one they adapt. If they want to adapt pre-combat, I'll take that. That worked out pretty well. They can attack for 3, it's no problem. So they can still adapt the other one, but we have pretty reasonable attacks. Gain 1 life here, and then have a 5/5 ready to come down. Actually, we do have 6 mana that we can mutate. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so I think we'll just do that, since I think their best bet is to mutate the second Terramander. And if we do that, then they're probably just locked out of the game. The question is, do we mutate onto Hushbringer or mutate onto the Greathorn, just get more lands? Just mutate onto Hushbringer, I think, and just kind of spread the wealth. Alright, so now they've just wasted 2 turns. They can attack for 3. We're in a pretty fantastic spot. And I think I'd rather just get the creature down than a Vraska to kill their creature. We can always bring Vraska down next turn to kill what they play, and then just kind of have a nice clear board to attack into. Alright. So Heartless Act obviously doesn't kill the Terramander after it's adapted, but Legion's End does, so I think we'll bring that in just for a little more flexibility. Mythos is still fantastic. The flying on this is pretty sweet. We did see the Kasmina's transformation. Maybe we'll bring in 2 more Gemrazers to deal with any enchantment removal on the blue side. And let Vraska sit this one out since she is vulnerable to some of the flyers if we don't have a flyer in play. We do have a decent number, but there's no guarantee we'll have one on board. And I think Vivien is pretty good to put out beasts with reach as well. So we'll go ahead and shave off a Nethroi. And don't seem to have too many enter the battlefield effects, but I think just having the Hushbringer to block the Terror Manners in the early game seems pretty reasonable. So we'll try it like this. So no black, but we do have 2 of our 3 colors. We'll try it. Since we are most likely to find a black source than anything else. Nope. Alright. So give it a Charmander fly. That's cool. For a black mana source. There we go. Now do we kill that? Just to no, let's play the 3/3 out just to be efficient, I think. Just have some kind of a 1 mana instant speed effect. Unsummon, sure. Brineborn. Still a ways away from adapting, so I'm not too worried about it. I guess we just play the Vulpikeet out for 4 mana. We have a nice blocker on the Terramander. Okay, we have all the bounce spells this time. We just keep playing it out. We got 0 counters on the Brineborn Cutthroat, and Terramander still probably a couple turns from adapting, but they just have all the bounce spells. Sweet. Alright, so we play the Triton. Deal with that flyer while they're tapped out. So they put a counter on it by playing a spell during our turn, but then it just goes to exile and it comes back with a counter. But we do have the Death Touch to block it. Unless they have more bounce effects, which we've already seen several, so it's possible they still have more in hand, but odds are they've used up most of them that they're going to find this game. We did find a couple more black sources, so now we're able to kind of do what we need to do, but also they were able to tempo us out pretty good there. Got us down to 9, but without a way to kind of close out the game. Okay, they get flying in this turn to get in for 4. So we're down to 5. We need to gain some life at some point. Legion's End is fine to get rid of that. So we'll just play the Panther, I guess. Just hold back 2 creatures to block. So it could give it flying, potentially. That'd probably be their best path to victory. We could bounce one of these, but then we could still block and kill it. Unless they would have put multiple counters. block with Death Touch. And okay, so they suicide it. And a 2/2 flyer. We have a Nethroi, and we do have a Triton in the graveyard. I think mutating, getting a creature out seems pretty solid. And playing another Triton to gain some additional life. And we have a way to block their flyer. And we're fine trading these Tritons for their zombie token. Seeing if they bounce this, we've gained a bunch of life thanks to the Tritons, so we do have some breathing room. Okay, so the Callous Missile just get in for 2. Not sure why they're suiciding their creatures so much. Another land is sweet. Let's play this out as a 3/3 again and mutate. Take the 3/3 body over the 2/3. And I think we'll get the symbiote back so we can start gaining some life. And we'll go and attack. Alright. It's a bit of a rough start, but doesn't seem like our opponent has a good way to close out the game. So I guess the Drowned Secrets are just there to feed the Terramander. And they can adapt it pretty easily, so that's definitely something we have to watch out for. We can continue to grow our flyer and just hope they don't have a bounce effect. We're going to gain some life off of our symbiote, which is fine. So I think getting a symbiote out is probably the best thing. Matters. We'll try to grow this flyer as much as we can and hope that we just gain 1,000,000 life. I think 6 is fine, and sure, mutate onto one of these symbiotes. Grab a Black Source, I guess. Now we're in a decent spot. I think we'll attack with the 2 ground troops. And then just hold back the Necropanther and hope that's good enough. Our flying Necropanther. I'm happy if I want to make those trades. So they can make this a 5/5, but our 6/6 is just over the top of it. And if they bounce it, then that's fine as well. Just Cloud Conceal, draw a card, that's good. So Necropanther reanimating these symbiotes was clutch. And we're not too worried about the Drowned Secrets, but we could just mutate just to get the life gain effects. Which I think we will. Get more creatures back. Yeah, I think a 4/4 is better. 1,000,000 counters on it. Probably get another symbiote back, I guess. And Triton to gain some life. Ooh, wow. So yeah, we got off to a rough start, but man, those symbiotes coming in clutch, and Necropanther being able to bring a bunch of creatures back helped us stabilize against that early tempo. And yeah, our opponent was able to close out the game. We were able to jump back into it. So yeah, pretty sweet deck. Thanks for watching, guys. Let me know what you guys think of it, and we'll see you in the next one. All right, take care.